All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Round the Fire with Kingsley Safaris. Do not let my smart collared shirt fool you. I have literally just come in from the ranch. I had this cool episode organized, appointed, scheduled, everything, and it just got to be one of those days where everything just seemed to pile on the ranch, and I came running in the house, jumped through the shower, chugged a quick beer to calm me down, and I hopped on you. So even though I'm wearing a collared shirt, don't be fooled. I was pretty dirty about 10 minutes ago before we jumped on this call. But I just wanted to mention one thing before I bring my guest in. Thank you very much for those guys that have contacted me about the whitetail hunt that we're running here in West Texas. It really is a cool, just good, honest, traditional hunt. We've got a couple more days, weekends left open. So please, anybody that's interested in it, feel free to contact me on my email address, johnoverq@gmail.com, and I will send through all the details to you guys. As I said, we've only got a couple of spots open left, so please don't delay. If you want to have a real good West Texas hunt end of this year, then please get in touch with me. Okay, with that out the way, I really want to bring in my guest because, as is custom, I do a lot of social media trolling, and I've seen a couple of this man's trophy photos, and he has had some adventures. So I'm not going to delay too long. I want to bring my guest in, Wade Abadie. Wade, how's it going, man? And I am excited for this episode. I don't know about you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, John. It was good to finally get to talk to you in person, and anxious to talk shop a little bit and talk about how I got started on my journeys to Africa. So
Yeah, I appreciate it. You actually reached out to me and kind of just said, we'd like to do this, and I'm always game to hear anybody's hunting stories. And then, as I said earlier, one thing came into the next, and I kind of saw a couple of your trophy photos, and man, it looks like you had one hell of a time out there in Africa. But before we jump into that, as is custom, why don't you just give us a little bit of a background, where you're from, how you kind of got into hunting, and then what was that little spark that just set off Africa for you?
yeah, happy to do that. So I'm raised in the Houston, Texas area. Been living in Texas my whole life, and of course grew up hunting whitetails and hogs and doves and all the traditional Texas game, that most of us grow up hunting, and a few exotics here and there too. And started real early. Luckily, I had a dad that was very into hunting and hunted his whole life, and shared that passion with me and got me started real early. So I think my first animal that I ever shot kind of by myself was a squirrel at age 5 with a 22 off my dad's shoulder, and still vividly remember. I feel like I can remember frame by frame exactly how that squirrel hunt went. And I just got one squirrel, and that was it. But I actually have that squirrel mounted in my parents' house somewhere. So
Oh, that's cool. Nice.
yeah, it's like on a piece of driftwood or something. And from there, I graduated to whitetails. Shot my first whitetail when I was 7. And it's actually a miracle that I'm still interested in hunting, because the place I grew up, the place that we started me hunting, was pretty awful. It was like,
Right.
I think the entire year we saw 3 deer in the whole season. And so luckily it was my very first hunt, my first time sitting in the stand with a rifle, and this little 5-point buck just basically committed suicide. He walked out in the shooting lane at like 200 yards and then just walked straight to us and stopped at about 50 yards, turned broadside. I shot him, and it was all downhill from there. So I was hooked from that moment. And then we hunted like the rest of the season and I think we saw 2 does that season, and that was it. And so, a lot of kids, I think, would have gotten bored, but that one successful hunt is all it took to light the fire. So
That's real passion. If
yeah,
you've still developed it after going through the hard yards, then it's proper passion. It was meant to be.
yeah, I definitely think it was in my blood. I didn't think I really had a choice in the matter. And so from there, I can tell you, actually, it seems like a lot of guys kind of slowly drift into the African idea, and for me, it wasn't. It was like there was a specific point in time that got me interested, and I can tell you exactly what it was. I was 8 years old. I had just shot a black buck antelope, and we brought it to the taxidermist. We walked in the taxidermy studio, and up on the wall was this massive animal. And I asked the taxidermist, I was like, what is that? And he said, that's an eland. And I said, I got to have one of those. What's an eland? And so he told me they're from Africa, and he showed me some other stuff. And I was just glued to that eland. And ever since then, the eland has been like my favorite game animal on the planet. And they're a special animal, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
They're kind of in a league of their own as far as plains game goes.
Isn't it funny that sorry to kind of jump in on your story here, but
No.
the reason why I love this question is because Africa always starts at a young age with anybody, whether it's the books, whether it's the taxidermy, hunting with your dad, an uncle goes to Africa and brings back trophy, whatever it is. And I just love the fact that now I'm interviewing people that have been to Africa that are now looking back to times when they were kids or youngsters. And it's kind of got to be surreal. I'm very privileged. I got to be born and raised in Africa. It's still cool. But for me to hear like your story as a kid, seeing that eland, and now you're doing a podcast talking about your time in Africa, man, that's got to be so cool.
Oh yeah, it's surreal for me too, because I mean it's been a dream of mine that was 30 years ago. So I'm 38 now, and that started when I was 8 years old. So ever since then, I think I've consumed more African hunting content than anyone on the planet. Because I mean, I read every magazine article, I read Peter Capstick books when I was a kid. I read African Game Trails by Teddy Roosevelt, and I'm trying to think of a few other ones. Craig Boddington articles, anything I could get my hands on with Africa. I've got old VHS tapes that I bought at the trade shows that were, hunting in Africa. And so I've just been obsessed with it ever since. And it's a hopeless addiction that I don't think I'll ever get rid of.
No one ever does. No one ever does.
And going over there just made it worse, obviously. So, so kind of fast forward a little bit, basically. So to make it even more special, when I was a young teenager, because my dad saw that I was so interested in it, and he had always wanted to go to Africa as well. Mm-hmm. He booked a safari to South Africa for us as a family. And this was probably when I think I was 13. And so we were planning to go, and, flights were booked and everything. And a month before the safari, Dad lost his job. And through no fault of his own, it was just bad luck. And obviously it wasn't financially responsible to go, so we had to cancel. Now, to an adult, that's an understandable scenario. For a 13-year-old, that was like the end of the world. Yeah. I was devastated. And so not long after that, Dad said he knew that eland was like my main animal that I wanted to hunt. And so he said, since we can't go to Africa yet, why don't you find an eland hunt in Texas? And so I started doing my research, and I was calling ranches and talking to references and asking them how big their herds were, making sure they were big properties, and all this at age 15, I think.
Yeah.
And so ended up booking a hunt at a ranch called the Camp Cooley Ranch, which is a cattle ranch kind of near College Station area.
Okay.
And they had a section of the ranch that was high fenced, and they raised eland, and they had some white-bearded wildebeest and a few other animals on it. And ended up successfully hunting an eland here in Texas. And I shot an ancient bull. It wasn't didn't have huge horns, but he was just massive dewlap, big ruff on his head. And in my opinion, and probably I feel like most PHs agree, yeah, the horns are not what make an eland trophy. It's the body and the mop and all that good stuff. It's all the other things, the blue skin where his hair is falling off and everything. So
yeah,
I got my eland at least. So that kind of gave me a little bit of a pacifier until I could actually get to Africa. But then we actually ended up booking another trip when I was in high school. And that trip didn't materialize for other reasons that were out of our control. And so I was 0 for 2, and I was just like, man, this is just not going to happen. I just kind of gave up for the time being, and graduated high school, went to college, got a job, met my wife, bought a house, got married, had kids. Next thing you knew, 20 years had gone by. And so, it since that first safari was booked, it just kind of just flew by, and it's crazy how time flies. But
Mhm.
then, as much as I hate talking about COVID kind of made the stars align for me to get to go on my first trip.
Okay.
As you know, like 2020, basically the whole country was shut down. South Africa we weren't even allowed to go over there basically for 2020. My first daughter was born in 2020. Then in 2021, I guess the country opened up, but I think a lot of outfitters are probably having a hard time getting people to come back, and so I noticed before I even found the guy that I went with, I noticed some really good deals on safaris because I'm always keeping track of hunts, and I'm on forums and stuff. Just I've always researched
Yeah.
the hunting business, and so I kind of already recognized that there were some deals being had, but it wasn't really in my mind that I was going to get to go anytime soon. And I was on a forum online, and I came across this post from a guy that he had a really good reputation on the forum, and he had just returned from his trip, and this is in August of 21. And so he basically was acting as the booking agent for the outfitter, and he posted the prices, and I was just like, this is wild. Like, these prices are unbelievable. I said, there's got to be a catch. There's got to be a scam or something. But I said, something's telling me I need to research this a little further. So I was planning to do a trophy whitetail hunt with a friend of mine that year. So I'd already been saving for that hunt. And so luckily I already had a little bit of a nest egg built up. And I called the outfitter, talked to the outfitter, called as many references as I could, watched a couple of YouTube videos from hunts that had been filmed with him. And it's just a small family owned operation.
Mhm.
And I said, I actually, to back up a little bit, I've been involved in the hunting business off and on throughout my adult life. So I used to be a booking agent for ranches here in Texas. I've done a little bit of guiding. I was a ranch hand in the summers in college. I've just always kind of been around the business.
Yeah.
And I've been a paid client. I've been a host. We always had corporate deer leases growing up. So I was always entertaining corporate clients. And so I kind of knew how to ask the right questions. And I was like, if this guy's bullshitting me, I'll be able to tell him in about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I got no red flags. And so I said, I think I'm just going to go. I'm going to take a leap of faith and go with this guy. And I didn't bring anybody with me. I just went by myself. And so I'd never been to Africa. I'd only been out of the country one time, to Europe. And so it was kind of a little scary to go halfway around the world and meet somebody that I'd never met before and say, hey, I want to do this trip. So I booked, it was it was an 11-day trip. And my wish list was basically endless. It was only bound by my checkbook. So luckily I was very successful and had a very good trip, and ended up shooting 13 animals on that trip.
Nice.
All exceptional quality animals. And I think part of that was because COVID had shut down the country so much, they didn't have nearly the hunting pressure leading up to my trip.
Yeah.
And I went in April, which is obviously fairly early in the season. So I was the first. He had a few European guys come and shoot some management animals before I was there, but
Mhm.
I was the first really trophy hunter of the year to come in there. So there was lots of big animals, and they weren't super pressured. So we just had a really great trip.
And which part of South Africa was this that you went to?
So it was in the Northwest Province.
Okay.
And actually his family property, which is where his lodge is based out of, it's actually the border between Gauteng and Northwest actually goes through his property. So it's right on it's near Potchefstroom, if you know
Yes.
where that is.
Yeah, I know where
A
Potch is.
little university town,
Mhm.
I guess. And really pretty area. And I didn't realize there was such high elevation in that area. It's like
Yeah.
5,500 feet above sea level. Amazing weather. Even April, it was like lows in the 50s, highs in the 70s, and beautiful weather, except for the rain. So they had in 22, they had an exceptional amount of rain before I got there, and it continued some while I was there. And our first day, we didn't even get to hunt until like after lunchtime because it was just a torrential downpour.
All right. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm so excited to be there, and jet lagged and couldn't sleep that night, and just, restless, and then just have to sit in the lodge and watch it rain for 5 hours was kind of disheartening, but we finally got out and made it happen.
Were you, did you kind of, I know you said you were anxious to get out there mostly because of the rain and everything, but at the same time, did you also feel those missed hunts when you were a youngster, when you were 15 years old, and when it didn't work out and everything? Did you kind of also carry that and be like, this is the moment I've literally been waiting 20 odd years for? Could you feel that you just wanted to get back out there or even get out there?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, gosh, it's never going to happen. It's like the rain's not even going to let me hunt. So I was super anxious just to get out and start hunting. And so the rain finally cleared out. It actually didn't stop raining. It just reduced to like a small drizzle so we could at least tolerate it. And within a couple hours, spotted a group of red hartebeest.
Nice.
And that was on my list, especially because I wanted to focus on all the classic stuff, but especially animals that we either don't have at all in Texas, or, stuff that's a lot more expensive here in Texas. And not that it was all based on money, but I definitely, hartebeest was towards the top of the list. So we spotted a herd, and there was a really good bull in it, and got one in the salt. So that was my first African animal, was a red hartebeest.
By 2010 road. You see him, the big one. He's gonna stop now.
Did they not respond to that?
Wait. Okay, he's open. Take him on the shoulder when he stops. He's gonna walk. He's gonna stop now. He's gone. See?
We good shot?
Yeah, he's gonna go down now.
Could you see where I hit him?
In the lungs.
He was still walking, so.
Yeah, no, he's pissing blood. Oh well done, Wade.
All right.
Oh man, I can only imagine what that feeling must have been like for you to finally lay your hands on an African animal. Must have just been close to overwhelming, I bet.
Oh yeah, it was surreal for sure. And I forgot to mention also, so I borrowed a gun. I didn't bring a gun on my first trip, and actually didn't bring a gun either trip. Just simplifies things to not fly with a gun when putting up with all the paperwork and all that stuff. It's not too bad, I guess. I've got friends that do it, and they don't complain about it. But I actually hunted my entire first trip with a Cogswell and Harrison 375 H&H.
All right.
So,
okay. Nice.
which is severe overkill for most of those animals. But I'm all about overkill. I hunt whitetails with a 300 Win Mag, and I'm like, why not? Because you're going to get an exit wound, and they're not going to go far. And
sure,
I'm not afraid of recoil. So I said, sure. He suggested the 375. I said, sure, let's do it. So I shot everything with a 375.
Hey, it's pretty cool. The versatility of a 375 is massively underrated. Well, actually, it's probably not massively underrated. It's well known, if I should say that. But people tend to be a bit weary of it because they associate it with buffalo and with dangerous game and heavier animals. But man, it's a versatile rifle. It really is. And as you said, it's going to put a hole in the animals, but it's going to put them down. And I think that's the important thing at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, out of 13 animals, I think we only had to track maybe 3 or 4. And everything else just either went down instantly or went down within sight,
Yeah.
And
it's
so
interesting. You somebody that obviously does a lot of research. You said you watch a lot of videos, you read a lot of books. I've always been curious of somebody that does as much research as someone like yourself does and learns about it. And because nowadays you can really learn a lot from YouTube videos specifically. I mean, some of the videos that guys are making nowadays they're incredible. They're really good.
Oh, yeah, they are.
How do you then, when you're actually there, like boots on the ground, do you compare to what you've seen and what you know, or do you just kind of put that on the back burner and be like, I'm just going to experience it for what it is? Or was there similarities, things that you already know from just your research? Guys, I'm going to interrupt this episode for just a quick minute because I've got something cool to announce. As you can see over my shoulder, with this big thunderstorm rolling in, we've had some great rains out here in West Texas. And that usually means one thing. We're going to have a really good hunting season. I've been driving around, checking on the cattle, checking on the fencing, checking everything on the ranch, and I cannot get over how many deer we're seeing. And they are in incredible condition. The buck already in their velvet, and it is looking good. So, if you guys are like me, I've always thought it's never too early to plan for hunting season. We are running a little bit of a special at the moment here on the ranch. It is a buck and a doe combo for a weekend hunt. So that's Friday afternoon, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, and then Sunday morning. So if you are looking for a good, honest, traditional, low fence, West Texas whitetail hunt, then get in touch with me by my email, johnomcque@gmail.com. I'll send you all the details and you can come and hunt whitetail here on the ranch with me. We got everything. We got the blinds, we got the feeders. I personally prefer a little bit of walk and stalk hunting. So if you're looking to fill your freezer, or maybe you're looking to get the kiddos into hunting, maybe they can shoot their first doe or buck, this is the place to do it. We have only got a few limited spots available for the end of this year. So don't delay, get in touch with me today and we'll try and put together a really cool West Texas whitetail hunt for you guys. Okay, let's get back to that episode. Cheers, guys.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely, I was always thinking in the back of my mind that something, a certain scenario would go a certain way, and then it ended up maybe going a little bit different. And I was actually shocked by the similarities between that area and where I grew up hunting, which is in the Texas Hill Country.
Yep.
There's certain parts that we went to, it was like I could have taken a picture and sent it to one of my friends and said, hey, I'm in Fredericksburg or something.
Right.
And they would have said, yeah, that looks exactly like Fredericksburg. But it's funny how similar it looks.
So after your hartebeest, what were you on to next? Were you kind of trying to follow more or less a list, or did you kind of have it open? I know you said you had more or less animals compared to, the availability in Texas and things like that, but
Yeah.
did you kind of just have an open mind? You and your PH say, look, let's just go out there and see what we can find?
Pretty much. I mean, my list was pretty much anything that he had on availability on those properties that we were hunting. And so I learned from, I've got lots of friends that have been to Africa before I went, and all of them said the same thing, like, take what Africa gives you. There's probably going to be something on your list that you don't get, and there's probably going to be something that's not on your list that you're going to change your mind and shoot. So, and that was absolutely true, both trips. That's 100% true.
So the next animals after that, how many did you I know you said I think it was 13 you racked up. How did the rest of the hunts kind of play out?
Yeah, well, so we loaded up the hartebeest and we're headed back to the lodge, to the skin and shed. And this property, he has a absolute ton of blessbuck on this property. It's a 10,000 acre ranch, and he's got like close to 1,000 head of blessbuck on it. Oh, and so there were blessbuck at every turn. You'd see a group of blessbuck, and we came around this, we had seen quite a few, but we weren't really paying that close attention. But we came around this tree and in the truck, and he slammed on the brakes, and he's threw his binoculars up, and he's like, dude, that is blessbuck you need to shoot right there. Like, no questions asked. And I looked at him, and I've seen a few here in Texas, but it was blatantly obvious I needed to shoot that one. Okay, and so he was a huge old male, and so didn't hesitate, shot him, and so then we had 2 animals on day 1. So
nice.
He's got to stop. Took those back. By the time that was done, took pictures, made it back to the lodge, and it rained some more. So we kind of that was basically our day. We only had maybe a half a day on our first day. But it was awesome. I mean, it was just, I was in the clouds. I just was over the moon excited and grateful and just happy to be there.
And by this time, you and your PH, you're obviously kind of hitting it off. You're starting to feel a bit more comfortable. It's amazing. I've had a couple of those rainy days too when you're out hunting, and they can kind of suck a little bit, especially when they kind of happen midway through the trip when you're kind of getting into a groove, or maybe you're realizing you're a couple of animals behind. But it's also a good time to just really get to know the hunter, and the hunter get to know the PH, and that's you obviously got on really well with your PH and those guys.
Oh yeah, well, he's like, I call him my African brother now, because we're just we're tight now. I talk to him at least a couple times a month. Ever since then, that was 4 years ago, and yeah, I felt like we were best friends by the time we got out of the truck on the way home from the airport. We really hit it off. So he's a great guy, and so then that day was kind of over. We celebrated, had some good meals, and sat around the fire and all that good stuff. I learned that I now have a love for Karoo lamb, because I had no idea. I like lamb here in Texas, but man, the Karoo lamb is something else.
It's different, eh?
Oh, it was amazing, and I dream about my mouth watering just thinking about it. And so the next day we had seen some zebra, and I wanted to focus on getting the zebra. Well, let me back up. My highest priority animal for the whole trip, guess what it is?
Got to be the eland.
No.
None. Oh, okay. Oh, damn. I thought you were going to jump straight into the eland.
No. So, I mean, obviously eland was on my list, but everybody who's ever breathed a word about hunting Africa wants a kudu, right? So
True.
So that was the top priority animal. We had seen a few cows. We had jumped one bull that looked good. We only saw him for maybe 5 seconds, and he was gone, and it was raining, and he just disappeared. So another kind of unique thing about this property is they have about 1,000 acres of eucalyptus plantation on it.
Okay.
And so I guess from what I understand, that area's got a lot of mines, silver, gold mines, copper mines, stuff like that.
Yeah, big gold mining area.
Yeah. And so back in the day, I guess they planted all those eucalyptus to supply wood for the mining facilities. I'm not sure exactly how they used it, but so that stuff is like a jungle. It's super thick. And once those animals get in there, they disappear. So that kudu bull that we saw the first day was gone and into the mist forever. And so the kudu's always, what we're looking for. But in the meantime, I was like, let's really go try to get a zebra on the next day. And the zebras were just not cooperating at all. The first day they let us get 150 yards in the truck, and just kind of mill around. And then of course you get down out of the truck and they just take off. People say, oh, it's like hunting a horse. I'm like, no, it's nothing like a horse. It's its own thing. And they are switched on.
Yeah.
And so we literally chased zebras all day. I think we had 4, 5, 6 blown stalks on zebra. And late afternoon, I ended up shooting an old mare.
Okay.
Because I told him I was fine with a mare as long as it was an old mature mare that didn't, was dry and didn't have a foal or anything like that.
Yeah.
And they were getting ready to bolt, and they started walking, and she was about 220 yards, and I shot her walking with a 375, and that was probably the longest shot of the trip. But she ran 70 yards and fell over. So
that's good for zebra. That's
that's what I hear.
Not as common. I was going to say, usually it's you tracking those things and going after them, but to drop it right there, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I credit that to the 375 putting a big hole through her. So
that's it. That's where it counts.
It definitely didn't hurt to have a little overkill.
And the thing is, a lot of people, as you said, you took a mare. I've shot many mares myself. A lot of people, they and ah at the start when you tell them that the female zebra's on kind of on quota, that you can shoot it. But once you kind of start going after them and you see the size of them too, I mean, there's obviously a difference in size between a stallion and a mare. but it's not
Not
much,
much.
and it's just
No.
as difficult hunt. It really is, and often the hides can be just as pretty and just as nice. A lot of times the males are all scarred up and scratched, and they're
Yeah.
missing the manes and things, but there is absolutely nothing wrong with the mare zebra.
Yeah. And that's her right there behind me. So,
I see
uh,
that. That's cool. That looks really nice.
yeah, it's actually, so I got everything skull mounted, but I did get a rug made and it's draped over my gun safe right there. So,
Oh, that's
uh,
cool. That's a nice touch.
rather than have it on the floor getting trampled all day, it's
Yeah,
figure it'll look nicer in the long run if I keep it off the floor. So,
that's pretty cool. I like
um,
it. Good idea.
yeah, and I'll have to send you. I'm surrounded by all my stuff from my first trip right now in my office. I'll have to send you some pictures.
Yeah, please do.
Uh,
I'll try and put them up in the videos here for everyone to see.
yeah, yeah. So day 3, we decided the the kudu on his property were just not. They weren't starting to rut yet. It was still too early. They were just staying in the eucalyptus and not showing themselves at all. Even though he's got a good population of kudu on that property. So we drove about 20 minutes to another property that he had permission to hunt on, a different concession, and that place had not just a lot of kudu, a lot of other things as well. And so we started off in the morning, right after daylight. Within 3 or 4 hours, we had seen probably half a dozen bulls,
Good.
and found a really good bull that I'm not worried about inches. I'm all about like as long as it's a mature animal, I just want a nice look.
Yeah.
To me, a 60-inch kudu that's got a wonky horn, I'm not interested in that. I'd rather shoot a 50-inch kudu that's got proper shape, and that's just my preference. Some people like the weird stuff, but I like the stereotypical kind of representative
Yeah.
specimen. So this bull was probably about 150 yards, and all we could see was his head, his horns, and his neck, and then about the top third of his shoulder.
All right. Okay.
And
Yeah.
that's really all we could see. He was broadside, and we could tell that he was broadside, but he had a small tree right in front of his shoulder, and because it was so close to him and it wasn't halfway in between us, he said, I think it's totally fine with that 375 shoot through that bush.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he knew that I was a decent shot, so he was comfortable with me doing it. And I've never shot an animal through a bush before, and so I was a little weary, but I took my time and squeezed off, and the bull just disappeared, and kind of like nothing happened. So we're kind of like, okay, what's going on? So we walk over there, and there's no blood at all. He was actually videotaping at the time, and so we reviewed the video, but you can't see much. You could see the top of his shoulder kind of moved whenever I shot, and he was really concerned that I shot him like in the back strap.
It's a nice one. Go ahead.
You think it's okay to shoot through a little bit of
A little bit of twigs is fine.
Or you got video?
Yep.
I'm gonna shoot him.
Okay. Okay, wait.
Did I hit him?
Yeah, you hit him.
I should have hit him better.
Mm-hmm.
And so that got in my head, and I'm just panicking now. So we find one tiny piece of meat that's about the size of a pea right where I shot him, and just meat, no blood. And I'm like, that's not good.
No.
So I'm really getting concerned. So fortunately, because it had rained the day before, the ground was all super soft, and all the old tracks were gone, and so we could see his prints, where he went. So we started tracking just only by hoof prints,
Mhm.
and we could see where he crossed the road about 50 yards from where I shot him. Still no blood. And he said, why don't you stay here in the road so that in case, by luck, it comes out you got a long shooting lane, and so my PH Henny and the landowner kept following the tracks. And about 5 or 10 minutes later, I'm sick to my stomach at this point. I'm like,
Yeah.
I screwed up my first opportunity at a kudu and I'm going to throw up, So after about 5 minutes, he calls me over, but it was kind of like wasn't an excited call. I'm like, okay. And so because they had so much rain, the grass is like belly high, so you can't see much. And I'm walking over there and he says, man, I think you gut shot him, and I'm just like heart sank. And as I get closer, he kind of stepped out of the way and I see a horn sticking out of the grass and he was just screwing with me. So, so that kudu bull was dead. He was dead within 70 yards of where we shot him. And there was not a drop of blood anywhere.
Okay. That's it. So what did you guess? A high lung shot then?
Well, no, I center punched him in the shoulder.
Okay.
Right through the shoulder, broke his offside shoulder. And the bullet was perfectly mushroomed right under the skin on the offside shoulder. And for some reason, he just did not bleed at all.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of guys that have kind of, mentioned theories of, I know they tend to say like water buck, for example, they got that long shaggy coat. A lot of the older PHs always said that you're not going to find blood straight away. You're going to find blood later on once that hair kind of like soaks up the blood, and then it'll start dripping 40, 50, 60 yards away. And then I've heard other guys say that you can actually get like an internal bleeding where almost the chest cavity kind of will fill up as opposed to it dripping down. So there's so many different scenarios, but you said you thumped at center mass, and that would have been pretty interesting. And it didn't, what you said, you were about 150 yards away and it didn't get in pass through penetration.
No, it didn't pass through, but it was perfectly mushroomed right under the skin. We flipped him over and he just had that bulge right under his skin and
that's crazy.
Cut it out with a knife. And I've still got that bullet somewhere around here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I saved it. So, I mean, it's impressive because it's a 375, 300 grain soft point. It's perfect. It could be in a magazine ad, just a perfect mushroom.
Man, these animals are tough, eh? They are so tough.
Oh, yeah, they are. Yeah. So I was amazed that he didn't bleed, but I was just thrilled to death that we found him.
Oh, you must have been so happy. Kudu on the board.
So I was so relieved. Yeah. I was like, all the pressure's off. The rest of the safari, I don't care if I kill anything else. I'm just so happy. And so we stayed on that property the whole day. And after that, we went to a different area of the property to go look for sable. And so at this time, this was kind of like the best deals on sable was in that 2022 time frame. Like they used to be really expensive, and then they came down a lot, and now they're kind of headed back up a little bit from what they were a few years ago. But he had a heck of a deal on sable that year, and so I said, let's go try for sable. On the way to look for sable, springbok was on my list, and we came around the corner, and here's this monster springbok. Like we had probably looked at 50 different springbok rams on his other property that none of them compared to this thing. And it was, I didn't even have to get the binos out. I was like, okay, that's a shooter right there.
Yeah.
So at this point, he knew that like we were talking, we were telepathic at this point. He didn't even have to say, yeah, you can shoot that one. He just put the sticks up and, time to shoot it. So I shot, and unfortunately, it's actually the only thing that I kind of wounded on the whole trip was the springbok. Hit him just a little bit low and just kind of luckily took out both of his shoulders just low.
Okay.
And he couldn't really go anywhere, and it put another one in him like just 5 or 10 seconds later. So he was out. But very, very nice springbok. Got to experience the final hair throw and
the pronging.
Smell the cotton candy and all that good stuff.
That's pretty good. They are nervous, jittery little animals, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. They are.
I always remember they were never one of my most favorite animals to hunt, and we were up in the Karoo, so obviously they're everywhere. And I always remember every time a client or someone would send me an email and they'd be like, "Hey, I want to do my springbok slam. I want to get all the color variants." And I'm like, "Oh," okay. And you got to type back and be like, "Yeah, sure, I'm excited." Yeah. And you think, "Great, I got to hunt 4 of these bloody bastards."
Bring your running shoes with you.
Yeah. But again, it's a tough little animal because I said they're very nervy, they're very flighty. the slightest little, they kind of tend to watch the other animals too. So if the blessed buck run or the zebra run, they are just
They're
out of there.
gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's what helped us here, because at Henny's home place ranch, they just had big herds, so that it was
Right.
so hard to get close, because there'd be at least 30 to 40 in a group.
Okay.
And so you got all those eyes watching you. And we were real lucky in this instance when we came around and saw this one, it was just 2 males by themselves.
Oh, nice.
And
That's good.
That made it much simpler.
Yeah. That's a big help.
Yeah, for sure. So I was excited about that. And then it wasn't 30 minutes after that, we found a huge old sable bull. And I mean, luck was smiling down on me that day. So ended up putting a good shot in and got I didn't measure, I don't think I measured any of the animals on the trip except for my sable and Gemsbach, but it was a 44-inch bull. And
Damn.
so I was very, very excited to get one that big. I was going to be happy with anything that was 38 or 40, whatever, just a nice looking mature bull, but he was good and old, lots of secondary growth at the bases, and just an amazing animal. They're so handsome. They're just they're one of the most strikingly beautiful animals.
Yeah, they are. They're absolutely incredible. And held in high esteem, rightly so too. But at 44 inches, that's an absolute corker. That's a great bull.
Yeah, he was awesome. Couldn't be happier with that bull. So I mean, and all this happened by like 2 in the afternoon. So I'm like, man, this is like the best day hunting I've ever had, And so I was in my mind I was done, but we loaded up everything and went back to the lodge and got all that, all the animals at the skinning shed and sitting around, and he said, let's just, take an evening drive right before it was kind of getting dusk, sunset time. And Impala was also on my list. Obviously, any first timer is going to want an Impala.
Sure.
And I had seen a couple of good shooters, but they were in big groups, and golly, they just, wouldn't let us get anywhere near them. And so we were driving around, and I said, what's that off by itself? And it was just a lone, ancient, old man, no teeth Impala by himself.
Love it.
He wasn't huge. I mean, he was broomed off. He probably was a 23-incher in his prime, but he was just an old blunt horned kind of old man.
Yep.
And had half an ear missing from like a caracal or something. I don't know. He was just like an old warrior Impala. And they had just recently burned maybe like a 20-acre section of grass in this spot, and he was just out there nibbling on the new growth, And there was a tree line that was like 100 yards from him, and it was just the most perfect textbook stalk, the perfect conditions for a stalk. Wind was in our favor, sun was to our back, all that. And he just perfect textbook stalk. So got up there and put him down.
Nice.
And,
don't you just love those absolute, the ones that have got the stories behind them? Like, I would love to be able to just speak of an Impala, whatever it is, and just say to them, like, tell me your stories, man. This would be so cool.
Oh yeah, this thing, he had some stories, because I mean, he literally had no teeth. I don't know how old an old Impala is, maybe 7, 8, like a whitetail.
Yeah.
But he would have been his teeth looked like a 10-year-old whitetails. He said, Henny said he doesn't even think that male would have probably made it another year. He was on gums almost. So it was a very cool animal to take out of the herd, like perfect conservation animal to take.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome, man.
So that was my best day on the whole safari. It was 4 animals in one day. I was like, this is cool. Nuts, I felt like I was already like halfway through my list on the 3rd day. So that made up for some of the other days that were a little less successful. I learned quickly by that time. I thought, you see people, everybody gets a warthog, and you see people get Diker and Steenbach, and I was after all of those, but I wasn't accounting for the waist-high grass everywhere.
Right.
And because they had so much rain, we saw lots of warthogs, but you would see them run across the road or run across a hill, and then you just saw tails. That's all you could see. So unfortunately, it never got a warthog on that trip. And we did see a couple diker, usually as they're bouncing through the grass, never a shot opportunity at one. And so some guys don't care about the small antelope, but I think they're awesome. Like they seem so spooky and secretive, and they're very challenging, which I learned the hard way. And so that was the end of that day. I'm trying to, let's see, what was the next day? I've got my notes here. So it's kind of hard to remember all the details from the first trip, since I just got back from my second trip.
Yeah, no, it's all good. And just to touch on the small animals there, like you said, a lot of people don't know that there is so many animals there in South Africa to hunt. But once you do start getting into tussling with those small animals, it's a whole different type of hunt. It really is. It's completely different.
Yeah.
That's why it's so exciting.
Oh yeah, I learned quick there. Just because they're not an expensive animal doesn't mean they're not a difficult animal to get. So some of the more expensive animals were the easiest, and the cheaper ones were some of the hardest to get. So the next day, we focused on Gemsbach, and so we had seen a group, I think on day 2, and I wasn't picky about a bull or a cow. I mean, obviously would have preferred a bull, but I said, if I see a really big old cow, I'm totally fine with shooting a big cow. And there was a cow in that group that was head and shoulders above everything else. And so I was like, that's what I want. So we found that same group on the 4th day and put in a good stalk. And I actually took quite a few walking shots on my trip. And I won't shoot an animal that's walking too fast or running or anything as a first shot, but a slow walk I'm okay with, as long as it's not too far. And she was probably 120 yards, and they were walking kind of quartering away. And so my thing is I always aim for the offside shoulder.
Yep.
And so, shot, and she buckled and kind of took off, and then the whole herd kind of disappeared behind a patch of brush, and then the herd ran out of the brush, but she wasn't with them. So we knew she was down, but it was a fairly large patch of brush. And we put the dog down, and even the dog was kind of searching for her for a little while. Then he said, "Man, I think you hit her too far back." And I said, "No, I don't think so." I said, she was quartering away, so I put it kind of back in the ribs, but it should have gone close to that shoulder. And so we found her, and sure enough, he said, "Yeah, you hit her too far back." He was kind of giving me shit, And so I said, "Yeah, but flip her over." And he flipped her over, and that shoulder just flopped over. And he said, "Well, I guess you were right."
Yeah,
so,
it works.
Yeah, but they're tough too. I'm like, be able to soak up a 375 shot with no shoulder and still run 100 yards.
Yeah, they are. And just the fact that you obviously know the anatomy of the animal helps, and how that anatomy turns when on those different angles. It makes a big difference. It's all very well shooting at targets that look like these animals when they're perfectly square on. But when something's angled away and it's, as you said, just walking slightly. And what people don't tend to realize too is that for an animal the size of a kudu, a gemsbok, zebra, wildebeest, whatever, these long-legged animals, they might be walking slow, but their striding is long. So they're actually covering a little bit further of a distance. And a lot of times you got to track it. So that it might be a good little bit of a tip or advice for somebody that's practicing for their first time, is that when you're in the shooting range, just track slowly. It doesn't have to be too fast. Just track slowly, and then when you're on the paper, just let one fly.
Yeah, that's a great idea, actually.
Yeah.
Or better yet, find some pigs in the States to practice on. They're always
running around here.
To practice. Yeah. And then I learned that about the stride with Elon. Early on when I was home here in Texas, it blew my mind how fast they were. Just at a steady walk. If the herd was walking, you got to jog to keep up with them. Yep. And if they're jogging, you might as well just turn around and leave, because you're not going to catch up to them.
Yeah. And also when they are running, it kind of emphasizes that muscle in that shoulder, and you're like, holy shit, look at this, look how solid that thing is. You don't think any bullet will push through it.
No, it looks like it's made of steel.
Yeah, they're chunky animals.
those eland look like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, they do.
And then, so that was actually the next animal that I shot. The next day, or I guess it was actually the same day as the gemsbok. And we spotted this bachelor herd. We actually saw this bachelor herd or bachelor group on the first day from a long ways off. And it was just obvious, you could tell just the silhouettes that these were 3 mature bulls. There's 2 that were big bulls, and the one that was probably not quite ready to be shot. But we saw that same bachelor group this day, and we spotted them from probably a half a mile away. It was a real open area, and they were kind of at the base of this hill in this valley, and they were headed up the hill, and there was a road that kind of went on the backside of the hill that we could take and try to cut them off, but I knew that I was like, I know how fast they are, and we may or may not actually pull this off. So we drove over there and parked and got out and kind of started making our way back to where we thought they were, and we just weren't seeing them. And I said, I bet they already crested the hill. They're probably already gone. Right as we were talking to each other about that, we just saw horn tips coming up over the grass, and my heart just was like pounding, And I was like, I can't believe this is actually working. So they were at 80 yards walking across broadside, and it was just like this little saddle in the hill where you could tell that's where they wanted to go because it was kind of sheltered, And he was the last bull out of the 3, and he was so old that his neck was actually white, which is kind of weird. Most of the eland that I've seen when they get old, they just turn gray, but he had like just white hair. His whole neck was white, and he had a big mop on his head, and he was walking also, and just a slow, steady walk, and I just put it right in the armpit, and he hunched up and spun, and I put a second one in him just because, and he ran about 80 yards and fell over. So
that's good. That's lucky.
Yeah.
I would say anyone, the front or the back. Go for the back one. Okay, wait.
Well, not lucky. I mean, that's well shot to put up on that second one, because as we said earlier, eland can easily absorb that first shot, and how fast they run, the strides they can get up over any hills or mountains. And even worse, it's funny, whenever you do shoot an eland, it's like that dying moment to think, where can I find the shittiest, most difficult part for these guys to try and haul me out from? Because I ain't going to go down without a fight. So if you could put one down and get him in 80 yards, that's pretty good, man.
Yeah, no, and I'm not averse to shooting multiple times. And my motto is, if I've got a shot and it's still on its feet, I'm going to shoot again, And I do that with stuff here in the States too. It's just, there's no reason not to.
Yeah.
It's better. People say, oh, you're going to ruin the meat. I'm like, well, if you lose the animal, you lose all the meat. So
100%.
it's better to ruin a shoulder or something and find the animal than to lose it all together. So
yeah, 100%.
I was so happy about that. And the next day, so Nyala has always been an animal that I was very interested in, but I didn't think I was going to hunt Nyala on this trip. But the property where we hunted the kudu, I didn't realize it was like an Nyala honey hole.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So while we were hunting kudu, we saw several groups of Nyala, and I said, I'd really like to go back and try to get a Nyala bull. And so he said, yeah, we can totally switch gears and do that. So we came up with a plan. I guess this is probably day 5 of that trip. Went back to that property, started right at daylight, and just started glassing hills. And man, we saw so many. We saw groups of cows and young bulls, middle-aged bulls, and had a couple of blown stalks on a couple of bulls. I learned that they kind of act like whitetail almost.
Yeah.
They're not super switched on, but they also are always watching you and trying to stay. They prefer to stay hidden than to run away.
Yeah.
And so after was probably early afternoon, 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There was a stream, or they called it a river, but in Texas we would call it a creek. It's just a small little stream that was flowed through this property. It was just thick as hell down there. And within about an hour, we saw 7 different Nyala bulls along this spot. Most of them just didn't have a good look at, but we could tell they were bulls. And then I found out later, it's actually an old abandoned orchard that was planted there years and years ago. I think it was either peaches or plums. I don't remember. But that's, I guess there's still remnants of those trees there, and that's why those bulls were in there feeding. And they were in the middle of the rut too. So I mean, every group of cows had a bull with them. And so we spotted this bull from 300 or 400 yards away across the river. And so we had to come up with a plan to go down in the thick stuff and somehow pop out on the other side, hopefully not spook them. And it worked. I didn't realize how close we were going to be when we popped out.
Right.
And so when we came out of the thick stuff, the group was 40 yards away. And so I was like, all we saw was the cows. We couldn't see the bull. And I thought he maybe had left, and because we really couldn't find him. And I was just looking at him, and I turned back and he just appeared. He just materialized out of thin air. He was right there at 40 yards and I smoked him. So that was probably the most fun hunt of the whole trip.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was a blast.
Yeah, because that's one of the things about the Nyala is you notice their movements. They're kind of like they creep. They're very sort of slow, jerky type movements, and they prefer that dense brush. I'd often say to my clients, like sometimes if we go after a Nyala and would spook them or bump them, they kind of think that was at the hunt over. And I'll say to them, I promise you that Nyala is just on the other side of that bush there. They don't like hightail it out of there like a kudu does. If you bump a kudu, he gets out there and he climbs 3 mountain ranges over.
Yeah.
And Nyala, I don't want to call them kind of dumb, because you can see that their coat, their coloration is made for that. They've got that camouflage to be in the brush, but they just hop in the bushes and they kind of stand still. If you walk around, you get another opportunity. But they're kind of creepy little animals through the brush there.
Yeah, for sure. And I made a great shot on him, but he ran about 200 yards.
Oh, did he? Damn. Okay.
Yeah, I hit him low in the shoulder, but something probably touched the heart, because we did find him dead.
Yeah.
But we panicked a little bit because we couldn't find him at first. But it was just part of that. It was just the grass was so tall.
Yeah.
Especially down in those little river bottom areas where the soil's deep. The grass was just out of control.
And another shaggy animal that kind of absorbs that blood first, and then it will start dripping later on.
Yeah. So now that was all for that day. The next day was kind of slow. It was off and on, drizzly rain, real cloudy. The animals weren't moving that much. And this wasn't on my list, but we saw a white blessbok that we saw him from a distance, and we just kind of left, and I thought I didn't want to pursue him. And then as time went on, it was just eating. I was like, I feel like I need to go back and give that white blessbok a try, because he was a big male. And so we went back to that area and found him, luckily, because it wasn't too long before I changed my mind. And so we went back, and when we came back, and he was actually fighting with a common male, and he had just gotten his ass kicked. And so he was not worried about us at all. He was just focused on that male that he had just lost his fight to. And he was kind of, limping, not limping, but just kind of, you could tell, sulking and pouting from losing the fight. And so there was pretty open, and there was just one little bush in between me and him, and I just put it between us and walked to 100 yards, 120 yards, and put in a high shoulder shot and dropped him. So
nice.
Yeah, it was kind of cool, because most of the white blessbok I see kind of have that dirty yellowish color to them. And this ram was kind of silver color almost. I didn't see any other ones that color on that whole trip. And so it was kind of a unique coloration that kind of made him more of a unique specimen.
Yeah, they're beautiful. I like
Yeah.
white breastback. Hunted many of them, and I always enjoyed it. Mostly just because it's easier to see and spot
Yeah.
from a
Yeah.
distance
Yeah.
off. But yeah, they're beautiful animals, white breastback.
And they're great. They make great markers too, right? When you're trying to shoot a common and there's a herd of 40 in front of you, you go, okay, look at the second white breastbach from the
Yeah,
left.
you see that
And,
white
and
one, it's there to the.
he's 3 to the right of that one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah. So, so then I also had blue and black wildebeest on my list. We were not having good luck at all with those. And the black wildebeest in particular was just the most ridiculously difficult animal on that trip to get close to. I mean,
Okay.
they were always, you could always find them, you know, they were always out in the open, but they would be 500 yards from the nearest bush. And I wasn't real comfortable shooting past 200 with that 375. So,
Right. Yeah.
you know, if you had a long range gun, it wouldn't be difficult at all, but trying to get within 200 was very difficult. I think we had 8 or 9 failed stalks on black wildebeest over the course of 7 or 8 days. And I had basically given up on them. I was so frustrated. I said, screw it. I'm not worried about it anymore. I'll try the next trip. And so we were trying to get a blue wildebeest and found a good bull. He wasn't a huge bull, but it was the best one that we saw on this trip, and got a good shot. And another animal that surprised me with just how unbelievably tough they are.
Yeah.
The bull was kind of off to the side of the herd, and he was walking slowly to the left, and I hit him perfectly center in the shoulder with that 375, and he just took off, you know, takes off running. And luckily he kind of made a big U and came back running the opposite direction. And then you could tell he was sick, you know, I mean, he was slowing down, but I put another one right behind the shoulder and he still didn't drop, and he was still running. And then he fell over. And I'm just like, how does an animal that size soak up 2 perfect 375 rounds and just keep going? You know, it's wild.
Okay, I'm gonna shoot.
Okay. Good shot.
Good shot.
Perfect shot.
Go down now. Chicken from the back. There he
Back.
stops.
I hit him good twice.
Do solid shots. You'll go down now.
Yeah, it's as they say, you know, the more you shoot it, the stronger it gets. Type of thing. And then I'm sure once you open it up and you just see the heart and the lungs, everything's decimated, and you're like, wow, how is this going? I'm a firm believer that it just shows once an animal gets that adrenaline kick, it's basically dead on its feet. But that adrenaline just pushes them so far on. And the wildebeest is one of those animals that really does punish you, even if you're saying you're putting in good shots, but if you do not put in a good shot, oh my goodness, then you're in for a long day.
Yeah, I've heard quite a few not horror stories, but just challenging follow-ups with blue wildebeests in particular. They're I guess they don't call them the poor man's buffalo for nothing.
Yeah, and they're very kind of they're well in tuned with their areas a lot. Even though you tend to find them out in the open, in the grasslands, they know where all the little deep ruts and the rivets and the thick bushes are, and those little cloves and riverbeds, and that's where they tend to go down into. And being so tough, and they're happy to fight too. They'll fight a dog or whatever coming in, so it's difficult to flush them out of there too. And yeah, always a tough animal to hunt.
Yeah. So now we're at like day 8 of this trip, and I was, you know, had taken most of the things that were on my list, and like I said, I had basically given up on the black wildebeest, and he said, well, there's another property that's literally like 10 minutes down the road that has black wildebeest, and the property is not nearly as open, and so there's a lot better situations for stalking, you know, without having to cover 500 yards of open ground.
Yep.
And he said that, you know, they don't hunt that property nearly as much, so they're not as pressured. And so he said, let's just go try for one morning. Let's just go try. And I said, all right, whatever. You know, I was very skeptical at that point. I'm like, this is not going to work. But he proved me wrong. So we got there, and we had a couple of failed stops there, but ultimately did get within 120, 140 yards of a group. And there was just a giant old cracked boss. I called him Darth Vader because when we saw the first time that we saw him, it was misty raining, and so his bosses were just wet, and it looked like that. It looked like he just had a helmet on, you know. And so I knew he was a good bull, but I didn't realize how good he was until he was on the ground, and he was an exceptional bull, and very, very old, just big, deep cracks all through his bosses, and old man. So great bull to take, and couldn't be happier.
Yeah, those are the ones you want. I often used to enjoy pointing out the extra little details to the clients about the black wildebeest. One of the things I used to love was their eyelashes. They got these incredibly long eyelashes. They're beautiful, and then obviously that like golden mane, the tail, everything. It's just people don't realize how many small details there are on a black wildebeest, and it's cool. And like you said, the cracks on it, I used to love it. The more cracks, the better. Chips, broken horns, whatever it was, it just really adds to that character.
Yeah, for sure. There's unique animal, and we've got some in Texas, but they're not common at all in Texas. So I had seen them before, but I'd never been around big groups of them like that. And they are a squirrely, switched on animal. They're just you can never predict what they're going to do.
Yeah, and there's just something about hunting them in their normal sort of habitats and environments.
Yeah. It's almost like they don't even know what they're going to do next. It's like it's like when they're running, it's like a surprise when they turn. You know, it's just like, oh, we're going to go this way now. So
yeah, you might as well just stay in one spot, and they'll just come around back into the same place again.
Eventually, they'll end up back where they were.
Yeah, so, but now it sounds like you're stacking them up pretty nicely now.
Yeah. So that was the final animal that I got on the trip.
All right. Okay.
I still had a couple of days left, but I basically was out of money, and I was so pleased with everything so far. I wasn't in a hurry to shoot anything else.
Yeah.
Except I was still very much trying to get a warthog, and it just didn't I mean, we literally hunted warthogs every day for the next 3 days, and never. I saw a mature boar briefly for just a moment, and didn't have a shot, and he was gone, and never got another chance at one. So I was bummed out about that, but it is what it is. You know, that's why it's hunting, and nothing's guaranteed. And I also, so a kind of a sidebar, I'm also very into wildlife photography.
Oh, cool.
And so I brought my camera equipment with me, and I've been taking photos all along the way here and there, but kind of focused more on doing some photography the last few days, just kind of winding down and taking it all in, and the sunsets and all that good stuff. And so, I mean, I was ready to see the family, but I was not ready to leave Africa. It was very difficult. It was like it had been so long that I'd been waiting to come, and it was just a dream come true.
I often used to say there's that sweet spot in your trip where you kind of hit this level of like contentment. I know it's always very easy to get caught up in going after the animals, and there's always that excitement and adrenaline and apprehension of the first day and the second day and getting the first animal down. But usually it's kind of the second last day to either the last night where you start to just take everything in. You know, the food, you appreciate a lot more. You with your photography, you just sit back at the fire on that last night with your PH and you kind of just let it all out and be like, wow, that whole trip was just amazing. And I used to love it where you see everybody that had the animals that they're going after, they had a great time, and they just hit this perfect spot of contentment where they're like, I don't want any more. I don't want to shoot any more animals.
Yeah.
I'm happy. And it sounds like you hit that spot perfectly.
Oh yeah. Just satisfied and grateful to just be there. Yeah.
I can only imagine that it must have been running through your mind on the plane back about how to get back, planning the next trip, everything like that.
Yeah. And I was planning it. I think I was planning my second trip before I even left to go on the first trip. That's how, I mean, I'm just obsessed with it. So, yeah, I mean, I guess fast forward to my most recent trip, it was 4 years in between trips. So
All right. Okay.
Henny actually came to the Dallas Texas Trophy Hunters Convention
Mhm.
in January of this year, 26. And it was his first trip to the States. And so I drove up there and helped him with his booth, and some of his other previous clients from Texas went up there, and we all just got to hang out, and it was great to see him over on this side of the pond, you know, and inevitably, you know, we got to chit-chatting and came up with a scheme to get up back over there. So, but my second, it was not even a thought that I was going to be able to go this year, but he had some other clients coming in. He actually, a friend of mine who's an outfitter here in Texas was helping Henny book some hunts. And so he had a group going, and he was like, man, you should really just try to squeeze it in, even if you can just come for a week. And between work and the family, I've got 2 young daughters, and it's hard to be away for that long.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
I said, you know, I talked to my wife about it, and I have a very understanding wife who supports my dreams and goals. And she said, yeah, you should go. And so I booked a flight, and next thing you know, I was heading back over for trip number 2. And I went in June this time. So it was a little better weather. It was cooler, less grass. It looked like a totally different place, because when I was there, it was green and lush, and now it was a little bit more like what I'm used to hunting whitetails in Texas, just kind of brown, scrubby looking country, you know.
Yeah. Well, I
And
think we might have to catch up on a part 2 of your trip, because like I said earlier, I had a sneaky couple of looks at your trophies there, and there's some really cool stories there. But I think we're going up over an hour and 10 minutes already. My
oh
goodness,
man, already,
unbelievable!
holy moly.
It's so cool, and I want to hear all these details. I don't want to miss out on it. I'm sure everybody else does too. But if you're keen, I'd
Yeah,
love to get you back on for a part 2, man.
absolutely.
Yeah, that'll be awesome.
Happy to
Because
do it.
I always enjoy. I mean, I always enjoy hearing stories from everybody, but that second trip, I don't know why. There's just something special about it, and I'm sure you can relate to it. You're a little bit more clued up. You kind of have an understanding of animals. I just always feel like there's that little bit more excitement in a second trip to Africa. So I definitely want to hear about that, and we got to dedicate a full episode to it.
All right. Well, sounds good. I'll be happy to do it.
Well, look, before we kind of end off here, anybody who wants to reach out to you, maybe even see some of the cool photos you took, anything like that, can they do that? Can they ask you questions about the trip?
Sure, absolutely. I'm always happy to help any way I can. You know, I've had lots of people reach out to me specifically about hunting with this outfitter, and but even if it's not related to that, and just general questions about Africa and the logistics. And I feel like a lot of people are just intimidated because they don't know what they don't know, you know. So
Yeah. And
there's
I always encourage people to reach out, ask questions. Like you said, that may not
yeah,
necessarily be about the outfit you're going with. It could be about flights. It could be about climate. What did you pack? What clothes did you wear? Whatever it is, the more we talk as hunters, I think the better everybody else experiences.
yeah, no, I agree. So I mean, you know, they could reach out to me on Facebook. Just look me up. I'm probably the only Wade Abadie on Facebook. And I do have an Instagram, but it's only for my photography page. But they're still welcome to reach out. It's Wild Shot Wade is my photography page. So
Cool. Well, listen, man, Wade, I've absolutely enjoyed having you on. And I suppose you are kind of just down the road from me, Houston way there.
yeah,
And if ever I'm down that side, and we need to grab a beer sometime, and maybe you can show me some cooler, more trophy photos.
yeah, absolutely. You're in San Angelo, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Up in
Okay,
West Texas.
yeah.
Yeah.
I actually did an internship in college in San Angelo, so I've spent a little time out there. I love that
Okay,
part.
good.
It's kind of like where West Texas and the Hill Country kind of come together out there.
Yeah, that's it. This is such a cool little town, man. It's nice and
It
big in
is.
terms of that it's got everything that you need, but it doesn't have that city feel about it.
Oh yeah.
We've been to Dallas a couple times and Austin, and oh my goodness, it's a busy place. But when you come back to San Angelo, you just kind of feel a lot more chilled and rista here.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Well, cool. Wade, thanks very much once again. I really appreciate it, man. And yeah, like I said, part 2, we got to chat offline and try and organize a day sometime.
Sounds good to me.
All right, man. You enjoy it. Take care. Cheers.
Take care. Thanks, John.